We are ready, Chair Savage.
All right, commissioners, are we ready to begin?
Yes.
All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to the Cotati Planning Commissioner on Tuesday, the 16th of January, 2024. And we'll begin the meeting. Our first item, even before we go through roll, is the Planning Commission reorganization for 2024. So as we start that, I just want to say thank you to Noah and to Amber and JP and Carla and the whole staff for all your support and all the work that you do on behalf of the city and for kind of helping a novice navigate the waters these past 12 months. It's greatly appreciated. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Noah.
Oh, well, thank you, Chair Savage. You've done a great job over the last year leading our meetings. We really appreciate it. And as the commission knows, rule number 1 of the commission bylaws identifies that the commission is reorganized in the first month of every year. And what that means is we seat a new chair and a new vice chair. Typically, what would happen is someone would nominate the chair, which tradition, the vice chair is often nominated to serve as the chair for the next year. The commission would, the individual would accept that nomination, and then the commission would vote. Should Vice Chair Gilardi be selected, then Vice Chair Gilardi would move into the role of the chair, and Chair Savage would become just a planning commissioner. And then upon that term, initiating a discussion on who would like to nominate someone to be the vice chair would occur. Nomination would happen, acceptance of that, and then a vote. And so that's the first item on the agenda, to reorganize the commission to select a new chair and vice chair for the next year. It is a 12-month commitment.
All right, thank you. Do we have a nomination for the new chair?
Ed, are you interested?
Yes.
I nominate Ed Gilardi to
Thank
be
you.
the chair of the commission.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, can we have a roll call, Carla?
Oh, what about, do we need to do the vice chair as well before we do that?
We do
Or?
it both the same or?
No, we're going to do the chair first.
Oh, okay.
And then,
One at a time.
correct.
Commissioner Long, Commissioner Moffett,
Aye.
Commissioner Berman,
Yes.
Commissioner Savage,
Yes.
Chair Gilardi.
Yes.
Okay, so that concludes that item. Vice Chair
Congratulations.
Gilardi is now
Thank you.
the chair. Thank you, sir, for agreeing to continue service with the commission. And then that switch can occur now. And then Chair Gilardi will preside over these meetings and the selection of the vice chair.
Thank you. I'd like to see if there's any nominations for vice chair.
I'd like to nominate if she'll accept Kimberlyn.
I'll second that. Any other nominations? Carla, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Long.
Yes.
Commissioner Berman,
Yes.
Commissioner Savage,
Yes.
Vice Chair Moffett,
Do I vote? Yes.
Chair Gilardi.
Yes. Congratulations. Okay, can I have a roll call, please? Carla?
Yes, let's see, Commissioner Long, Commissioner Berman,
Here.
Commissioner Savage,
Here.
Vice Chair Moffett,
Here.
Chair Gilardi.
Here, yes. All right, item number 4, approval of the minutes. Does anyone have any changes to the minutes that they see? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve the minutes.
A second?
Second.
Carla, roll call, please.
Commissioner Long,
Yes.
Commissioner Berman,
Yes.
Commissioner Savage,
Yes.
Vice Chair Moffett,
Yes.
Chair Gilardi.
Yes. Item 6, public comment on oral or written communications. Is there anyone in the public that would like to address us in regards to items not on the agenda? Seeing none, Carla, are there any online?
Chair Gilardi, let's see, are we on item 5?
6.
Oh, okay. Sorry, thank you, Chair Gilardi. Speaking to our Zoom attendees, if you'd like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand icon, or if you're dialing in, dial *9. Lori, you have the floor.
Hi, this is Lori Alderman. I wanted to tell you that you have a technical issue. You're on Zoom, but the YouTube Live is is not live. It's set to start at 6:20. So anybody's missing public comment if they're doing it on your YouTube Lives. So I can get on Zoom, but most people don't know that. So just wanted to check that. Thanks.
Thank you. Is that something we need to fix?
So unfortunately, the device that connects the city's stream to YouTube stopped at the last council meeting. This is a week ago. There were some pretty significant technical difficulties. They replaced the device, but it appears that it may not be synced up. We have had this issue one time, and the 20-minute delay actually wasn't 20 minutes. So YouTube and Zoom are both provided as a courtesy. Anyone wanting to participate should come to the meetings in person. And so we are free to proceed. But thank you, Ms. Alderman, for letting us know. And we are continuing to work on addressing remote participation and watching of meetings.
All right, thank you. Item 7, matter at hand. 7A is a resolution approving the use permit for Sunbelt Rentals.
Hey, good evening, Chair Gilardi and members of the commission. I have a PowerPoint presentation for you that for this item, which will be up momentarily. But as stated, this item for your consideration is a use permit for the use permit for the Sunbelt Rentals business. Next slide, please. So Sunbelt Rentals is an equipment rental business. They'll also be proposing outdoor storage at this site, which is at 7611 Redwood Drive. And as you can see on the vicinity map, sorry, it's so small. The red dot shows where this property is located. It's in the northwest area of Cotati in our industrial area. Next slide, please. So you may be familiar with this property. Was formerly occupied by the Grow Generation, a hydroponics and gardening retail business, which has been closed some time. The property is outlined a little bit dimly there, but it's outlined in red. As you can see, it's actually 2 parcels. There's a parcel line going down the middle east to west, but the entire site is 2.36 acres and features a commercial building, which is just over 23,000 square feet. And the outdoor yard area, exclusive of the parking, is approximately 29,000 square feet. As you look at the aerial of the site, you can see that it's bounded on the south by the Laguna de Santa Rosa Channel. You can see some things that are out in the outdoor yard area. I believe that's actually unpermitted outdoor storage that was taking place when Grow Generation was still there before they moved out. That was not permitted. They somehow moved their storage outdoors during COVID, and then they closed and relocated. So that kind of use does require a use permit. That's why we're here tonight. The site features 47 parking spaces, which are located primarily along the northern edge of the property along a shared driveway. And then there's also a parking lot out in the front as well. And the site is served by 2 driveways. So there's a driveway to the south of the building, approximately where you see the E in Redwood Drive there. There's a driveway that comes in, and then the northern driveway is shared by easement with the neighboring property, which is occupied by Harley Davidson. There's also a landscaped strip out in the front of the property currently. Next slide, please. Okay, and here's just a street view of, this is the southern driveway going directly into the outdoor yard there. And you can see that unpermitted outdoor storage grow generation there on the side and the landscaping that's currently there on the site. Next slide, please. Oh, and actually I should say that is the driveway that is subject to some improvements to come up to city standards, which I'll come back to later. So it's just that southern driveway. So what's proposed by the applicant is an equipment rental business, and mostly this is heavier equipment for construction or landscaping projects. There's quite a few different kinds of equipment that they're proposing to store on the site and rent from the site. Or deliver primarily for rental from the business. And that includes a whole range of lifts, excavators, trailers, tractors, grinders, welders, and it's a fairly long list, but it does go down to smaller types of equipment as well. The equipment will be primarily delivered off-site by the business, and they'll have 3 truck and trailer combinations, 3 different vehicles that will be available to take the equipment out to construction sites or to home sites for landscaping or construction purposes. Those 3 vehicles will include 1 tractor trailer, 1 flatbed type of truck with one of those kind of like the ones you see. I think of them as the big tow trucks, that have the back that tips up. That's, I believe the bed is 16 feet long, and then an F-350 truck, which will be towing an 18-foot trailer. So that's what they're going to be using to move the equipment off the site. There will be a limited number of walk-in customers. This is really not considered to be so much a retail walk-in location as it's a storage and delivery location. The equipment will be stored both indoors and outdoors in the paved yard to the south of the building and to the rear of the building. Sunbelt is proposing to start with 5 or 6 employees, and that may grow up to 15 employees over the course of 3 years or so. Their operating hours are proposed to be 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Next slide, please. The proposal also includes some minor improvements to the property, exterior painting, removal of 3 small outbuildings that are on the property, construction of a covered washing and fueling pad on the site, which will have an oil and water separator, and I'll get more into that later. Some ADA improvements to the existing parking. There is a perimeter chain link fence around the yard now, and it has a few slats in it. Sunbelt is proposing to install brown privacy slatting throughout the fence to sort of screen the view of the outdoor storage from the neighboring properties in the street. The proposal also includes all new landscaping along Redwood Drive, as well as improvements to the south driveway and the surrounding sidewalk, just at the edges of the driveway, to bring it up to the city's current driveway standards. On the interior, very minor improvements, a new checkout stand and removal of 1 interior wall. Next slide, please. Oh, and the project will require a building permit for the improvements that are taking place on site. So this site is, as you can see, it's located very close to Highway 101. It's not far from Highway 116. We would consider this freeway-oriented commercial, and in being in proximity to the highways provides easy access to destinations throughout the county, but will be helpful in not sending the traffic through residential neighborhoods or through the core of downtown Cotati. As I mentioned, there's 2 driveways off of Redwood Drive onto the site. The applicant is proposing that trucks that are delivering equipment and returning from deliveries will enter the site. They're proposing basically a one-way circulation through and around the site, coming in through the south driveway and exiting out through the north driveway, so that limits the number of trips that are actually coming and going from either one of the driveways. To start, they're proposing 8 trips per day through delivery trucks, and then, as I mentioned, 1 or 2 customers to the site a day initially. So again, pretty limited customer traffic. The site provides 47 parking spaces, which are all already there on the site. Next slide, please. So here's the site plan for the site that the applicant is proposing. So it's a little difficult to see at this scale, but this shows the southern driveway just there and on top of that kind of L-shaped green area where would be entering the site. And that's also, both driveways also access the parking area in the front, the parking lot on the front. The trucks would be entering the site from the southern driveway there along that green strip. Trucks would be parked, for overnight parking, would actually be parked inside the yard, not in the northern part where the other automobile parking is along the northern edge. The trucks would continue around the building and then make their way out to the east of the building into the shared driveway and then make their way along the driveway to exit out the north driveway. Okay, that's all I wanted to say about that slide. Next slide, please. Again, not very many physical changes to the building are proposed. The building will be painted to the Sunbelt Rentals. Typical colors are green and gray. The fence slatting will be brown. The fence will be 8 feet high. And one of the conditions of approval for the project is that the equipment that's in the yard be stored in its most compact location, position, so no extended lifts or cranes. And the applicant has indicated that all of the equipment can be stored in a low enough compact position so that it doesn't project above the 8-foot fence. Next slide, please. The applicant is proposing new landscaping along the Redwood Drive frontage. What is proposed is, and this is just one half, this is the northern portion, there's another stretch to the south, so it'll be the entire frontage. They're proposing to maintain the existing trees that are there. There's several trees, including some redwoods and some sweet gums, I believe. And what they're proposing is really new ground cover and shrubs. And it's primarily drought tolerant plantings and a number of natives as well for the site. Next slide, please. So with the type of use that's proposed here, the potential for hazardous materials to cause some kind of an impact comes up. And so we've looked at the site the project through that lens. There will be no fuel tanks on the site or fuel storage located on the site. So because the presence of fuel would be one of the primary concerns here. So the fueling will either take place off-site when the trucks are out and about, or they're going to install this fueling and washing pad to the rear of the building, and that will be covered to prevent rainfall onto the site, potentially washing contaminants out towards the Laguna Channel. It'll be sloped downward towards the center, towards the drain. There will also be an oil and water separator installed in the fueling pad at the drain to ensure that, minimizing any contamination that might be going down into the sanitary sewer. And that's an area where they'll not only be fueling with a truck that will come onto the site, a fueling truck, and then will leave again, so it can't be located permanently on the site. They'll also wash the equipment there.
Amber, what type of monitoring is there of that drain where those type of things would collect? Like on residences, we have annual backflow testing and things like that. What type of monitoring and testing is this for a commercial?
So that's subject to a wastewater discharge permit through the City of Santa Rosa's Environmental Services Division because they're in charge of our sanitary sewer system. And so they will be they'll be considering and then issuing the permit, if approved. They'll also be inspecting the oil water separator that's there on the site. And they actually need to sign off before the building permit
Is there
can
an
be issued.
ongoing inspection like
Mhm.
annually like we
Yeah.
have on other? Okay.
Yeah, so that will be under the City of Santa Rosa's purview. So, that's something that will be maintained over time. The applicant is proposing to store motor oil and hydraulic fluids on the site. Those will be stored indoors in drums inside the building. And those substances will be subject to a hazardous materials inventory statement that is required by the Rancho Adobe Fire Protection District. Next slide, please. So with any use permit, we're concerned about consistency with the general plan as well as the zoning code. So the general plan designation for this property is commercial industrial. And there are several policies within the general plan that this use permit, that this business here in this location would be consistent with. And that includes attracting and retaining economic centers in which Cotati has competitive advantages. And in particular, in this case, where this is a freeway commercial site, and this is a site that is in keeping with that type of location and that policy as far as economic vitality goes. Other policies include encouraging the growth of new commercial enterprises within appropriately zoned areas, supporting and encouraging the growth of Cotati's industrial area, and development and intensification of land uses that promote employment. Next slide, please. The zoning designation for this property is general industrial, which is appropriate for a wide variety of manufacturing and warehousing and other heavier uses. The construction and heavy equipment sales and rental land use is allowed within the IG zone with a minor use permit. The outdoor storage component is allowed with a use permit. And so that is why we are here. The presence of the outdoor storage kicks this up to a full use permit for this project. The parking requirements are set by the zoning code. In this particular case, there is not an applicable applicable parking standard for these land uses. And so, we kind of have to go by any other types of uses that might have occurred at the site and been successful. There are 47 parking spaces on the site. The previous use was a retail use, which has a fairly high parking standard compared to an industrial use. And it actually would have required 53 spaces. Why they didn't have 53 spaces, I don't know. But they clearly, the site has been able to accommodate a retail use, which has typically a much higher parking demand than an industrial use. And so the staff's feeling is that the parking is adequate for this use. And the applicant is projecting that between the numbers of employees and the daily projected walk-in traffic, that the parking demand will actually be considerably lower than 47 spaces. So we think that the site is adequately parked for this use. Next slide, please. The use permit or the conditions of the use permit are varied, and I want to just call out some of the more important conditions here. One is that the applicant install and maintain the 8-foot fence with the privacy slats around the outdoor storage area. That the equipment stored in the outdoor area be stored in its most compact position and not projecting above the fence. That there be no fuel tanks on the site or prolonged presence of fueling trucks on the site. That the washing of the equipment and trucks and any fueling of the equipment or trucks, it takes place only in the covered wash pad area. The applicant will be required to obtain a wastewater discharge permit from the city of Santa Rosa. The improvements to the southern driveway are also part of the conditions of approval, as well as the hazardous materials inventory statement. Next slide, please.
Do you have any more specifics around the sidewalk improvements there at that driveway?
Yeah, so that improvement to the driveway, there's a standard number, which I think is 103. And basically it's an ADA and accessibility improvement. So typically what that will require, and with the most basic level, is to install truncated domes, which are the yellow kind of bumpy surface on either side of the driveway. Depending on the angle of the driveway, the slope, there may need to be improvements in that regard in altering the slope or maybe even repouring the driveway in case it is too steep. And I don't know the specifics of that. That'll be up to the Public Works Department. There's also the question of what the lip is like at the edge of the driveway. Is it, is there a bump there? So it could be as much as just the truncated dome. So there might be more improvements, but it's fairly limited, accessibility oriented.
Thank you.
So a use permit requires 5 findings be made by the Planning Commission. The first is consistency with the zoning code, which we've already discussed. The second is consistency with the general plan. And the third is compatibility with nearby land uses. It's staff's position that that the site like this, which has previously been developed, it's had fairly intensive uses taking place there in the past, that it's already shown to be a site that is an industrial site that is, and this will be a continued use of it in such a capacity. There's an existing freeway-oriented commercial site and strip throughout that entire stretch of Redwood Drive, and this use is consistent with that, and that the circulation pattern that the applicant is proposing will minimize the impact of the business on neighboring uses and streets. Next slide, please. The fourth finding is that the site is physically suitable for the proposed uses. So again, this is a site that's previously developed, it's already paved. Very limited property improvements are required to be able to use it for this use. The access to 101 and 116 is very convenient, and the existing utilities and streets in the area are sufficient to serve the use. The fifth finding is that the proposed use be not detrimental to the public interest, health and safety. So the staff's position is that because this is an industrial area, it's an existing industrial site, it's not located near residential areas, that the business is unlikely to cause any kind of nuisances. It's fairly limited in terms of the number of automobile trips, truck trips that will be generated from the site. And there are adequate controls in place to minimize the impact of any hazardous materials that might be utilized in the conducting of the business there. Next slide, please. As far as CEQA goes, the environmental review, the project is exempt from CEQA because of the fact that this is an existing facility. There's an exemption that's available for reuse of existing facilities. In addition, the project is consistent with the final EIR for our general plan, and pursuant to the CEQA guidelines, no further environmental review is required for this use.
So if they are moving storage outside, though, that's still considered existing use.
Yeah, it's an existing facility. So yeah. I mean, if they were actually going to, if it wasn't already paved, if it wasn't already an area that had been developed, that would be a different matter. But the fact that it is a fully developed site means that it is an existing facility and as such is exempt. Next slide, please. So our recommendation to you is that the Planning Commission hold a public hearing and adopt a resolution approving a use permit for operation of a construction and heavy equipment sales and rental business with outdoor storage at 7611 Redwood Drive. And with that, we have members of the applicant team here tonight. Should you have questions for them? And I am also available to answer your questions.
Well, before we invite them, the very next page in our packet, it says that the city of Santa Rosa denied this referral.
Yeah, because they couldn't approve it as it was. So their conditions are part of our conditions of approval. Yeah, so if the applicant returns with an application for a wastewater discharge permit that meets the city of Santa Rosa's needs, then they will be able to approve it.
And the city found that it's not detrimental to the public interest and health and safety. I'm concerned about the Laguna. I'm concerned about that. And I wonder if this oil and water separator pad is overflowed, because it could be because of the rain we've been receiving at times. What happens if it goes off into the Laguna? I'm concerned about doing the very most we possibly can do to be prepared for this. It's not going to be an eventuality. It will happen. So I'm concerned and asking you, how do we plan for the worst possible?
So a couple of things. One is that the city of Santa Rosa is pretty specific about the design of the wash pad.
And how big is this wash pad?
So it's 20 feet square
Uh-huh.
and it has a 16-foot high roof. And so the city of Santa Rosa is fairly specific about the slope of the drain and, you know, the fact that the entire site be covered. And they will be signing off on the design before the building permit can be issued. We also, so, you know, part of our project review is that we will refer projects to different agencies. And so we also referred the site, in addition to Santa Rosa Water, we referred the site to, or the project to the Water Board. And we also referred it to the county, to they go by Sonoma Water, now the county's water agency, because they are responsible for the Laguna. And both of them declined to review the project, which indicates they do not see a significant concern.
Okay, thank you.
And the one thing I would add is staff had similar concerns. And so in addition to referring it to the agencies that are responsible for the Laguna as a resource, we also worked with the applicants to move some of the facilities further away from the property line, closer to the internal areas of the site, to try to address those concerns.
Yeah, originally, the applicant proposed an on-site fuel storage tank. And, you know, they worked with us when we indicated that that would not be something that we could approve.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, just regarding the traffic circulation through the property, we received a letter from the neighbor, the property manager for the Harley-Davidson building. They seem to have some concerns with the impacts to the road and the parking lot for moving heavy equipment and doing that circular path, taking it out the north entrance is going to impact that travel too. In the presentation, it talks about how, you know, that circular traffic pattern minimizes impacts to the neighbors, but they seem to feel differently. That's pretty much the only neighbor that drove by it. I just want to know kind of how we came to that conclusion that it would minimize the impact, and we can maybe address the concern.
So So yeah, the concern of circulation and impact on the neighboring business was something that we discussed with the applicant. And I think that's really how we have ended up with this resultant one-way traffic circulation around the site. The staff's feeling is that this is an industrial zone, and as such, there's a certain amount of traffic, including heavy truck traffic, that one would expect in a zone like this. That is not unusual to find that at any given property in the district. The previous business, Grow Generation, was receiving deliveries of materials, including soil, fertilizer, other fairly heavy materials to the site, presumably with truck traffic that was coming through the site. And we don't know exactly what their traffic pattern was. But we know that they were receiving deliveries there as well. The area that is going to be used or is proposed to be used to the north is along a shared easement. And so, half of the driveway is owned by the northern property, half by the southern property, which is the site the applicant is proposing to locate in. It is a shared parking, ingress, egress, and utility easement. And so presumably either one of these properties could potentially have trucks coming and going. It may happen that in the future, the Harley-Davidson business might move out, a use might move into that building, which would also have trucks coming and going. So that along with the relatively limited number of truck traffic coming and going for the use, where the staff is feeling pretty comfortable with that being pretty limited impact on the northern business.
They come in through the south gate and go out the back of the property.
Mhm. Yeah, the idea is to come in from the south and then make the turn around the back of the building and exit through the north through that shared driveway.
And this might be a better question for the applicant, but is it too difficult, or is it prohibitive to turn the trucks around in the lot and bring them back out? So driveway.
Do you guys want to address that? Yeah, great. Come on up to the podium. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dino Bonos. I'm the planning consultant on this project. And it would require probably a 3-point turn within the parking lot or the storage area. So there's limited amount of area to do that out of that southerly exit, to have it ingress and egress at that location. I might add that the location, the amount of traffic that's going to be out that northerly exit would be most of it, 50% of the traffic is going to be finished by 10 o'clock, by the operating hours of Harley-Davidson business. So, and the amount of time it would take to drive between to use that northerly easement would be about 30 seconds. So if you're looking at maybe 4 trips, basically talking about 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes a day operating out of that northern section. So it wouldn't be a constant flow of traffic by no means. So any other questions?
Is there specific detail currently on how that drive is maintained with the joint ownership and the easements? Is that something we've dealt with in the past, or is that a gray area that, if repairs needed to be?
I can tell you that.
Okay.
Come up.
Yes, please.
My name is Ken Burge, and I represent Rental Center Properties, who own the other side of the road. Can you pop up the screen that shows the driveways? Back to the other one's fine. Driveway from the building proposing is coming in on the south side, which is this building. They're gonna go around and out that alleyway. The alleyway was made only for car traffic. It's not made for heavy duty truck traffic. They are gonna put heavy duty truck traffic on that, no matter what anybody. Now, I'm not against Sunbelt because they're a good company. They'll do what they say they're gonna do. But they can't take big trucks down that alleyway because Harley Davidson's there. And there's a lot of little traffic there and the road will not support it. I happened to build both of those buildings. When we built those buildings, you say there's 47 spots, there really isn't 47 spots. Although I do think there's enough spots. Because that building on the north side, along the building, all the way to the end of the building, was made for the first come, first serve parking. So whoever was in this building or that building came there first parked there. And it's worked fine. But I've had to do all the work in that driveway, and the person that owns this facility has never done any work, and he won't do any work. So it's a little bit of an issue. I've had to pave that once already, and I don't want heavy trucks going through there and tearing it up.
So there is no bylaws or anything like that that designates who the obligation is and it's a joint
I would say
thing
no.
or something
I
like
would say
that.
no.
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
My name's Joelle Hanley. I represent the owner of the property that they want to rent. And I've been the property manager there for about 3 to 4 years. We've never been contacted by this gentleman to split any work or requested to do anything. So if he had asked, it was previous to the last 4 years. And I will say, every time I go down that driveway, the Harley Davidson side is full of little trucks and containers blocking half of that driveway, which makes it difficult to go in and out anyway. So that's really all I can say on that. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Additional questions?
Nothing for me.
As to Ken's concern, is the applicant willing to agree or go into an agreement about the upkeep of the northern driveway and figure out a way between you to work this out? Are you willing to, I don't know if there's a super pavement possibility. I don't know, but are you willing to do this is my question. What's your willingness? And is that even, can I even ask this
Yeah,
question?
so from the staff perspective, the circulation plan proposed by Sunbelt, who are requesting the use permit and outdoor storage is adequate. And typically the terms of maintenance would be spelled out as a private agreement between the two property owners as a part of that easement. So staff has seen that there is an access easement in place. We didn't review the text because frankly, it's a civil matter that the city is not involved in. As long as Sunbelt has the rights to utilize that to access their property, the maintenance schedule, the shared parking agreement that was indicated, first come, first serve, all that's going to be spelled out in the terms of the easement or through a civil action between the two property owners if they can't come to an agreement on what those terms actually say. But the city is typically not involved in that.
It sounds to me like there's a new property management on the building now or on the using the facilities. So I'm very optimistic that the two of you will be able to work something out and work out kind of shared maintenance of that road. Great.
Yeah, the only thing that pops up for me, and it was mentioned about with Harley Davidson, that's a lot of vehicles on one side. For a large truck to pull out of that driveway, they need space. So would it be possible? I know we don't eliminate parking spaces, but to eliminate the couple of the parking spaces to the right-hand side of that exit to make it easier for a truck to pull out? Because I know one of the concerns was disrupting the parking and daily business operations of existing tenants. And so if a truck has easier access to pull out instead of blocking the roadway, it'd be easier to pull out. And that would help maybe solve one of those problems.
Right, yeah, so it is within the planning commission's abilities to grant flexibility to the applicant in terms of how much parking they're providing on the site. So if the commission wishes to do that, you know, you can say flexibility in terms of the amount of parking spaces, maybe up to a certain minimum of spaces provided, in order to allow the applicant the opportunity to be flexible with the space around the
Yeah,
exit.
I think that would be a good, given that option, it make it easier for the flow of traffic, especially large trucks, to try to exit. So that way nobody's parking right there. It'll be much easier for them to make that right-hand turn to exit out of the property. Is the exit to the access road on the right-hand side? If you're to eliminate a couple of those, it'd be much easier for traffic flow to go, large trucks to pull straight out.
Corner of the proposed building.
Yeah.
Can I address that real quick here? Can you put that piece back up? Excuse me, I'm Doug Hams. I'm the construction manager for Sunbelt Rentals. So I handle all the construction projects on the West Coast. And this happens to be one of them. But if you can put that drive back up.
Working on it right now, yeah.
So are you talking about the northern drive or the southern drive?
The northern drive.
So on the northern drive, when you go to try and exit right, one of the things that we've looked at is maybe making that drive wider so we could exit and not have any problems. But if I'm not mistaken, I believe there's a fire hydrant right there on that side of the drive. And on the left side of the drive is the neighboring sign for the property next door. So it's we're kind of landlocked there, because that is one of the options we would look into, is widening that to make it more accessible for everybody. But with the hydrant there and the sign on the other side, it kind of limits us in what our capabilities are.
On
to
the
do
map that we have here, it looks like the hydrant is on the left-hand side.
It's on the right, yeah.
And this is the hydrant right over here, right?
I guess it depends if you're, which
Exiting.
way
So if you're
looking,
pulling
but
out of the drive,
looks like
it'll be on your right-hand side. Yeah, and then on the left-hand side is the neighboring sign, their monument sign on the neighboring side. I'm sorry, what's that? Oh, and
He said
then I see an island there as well.
Looks like
It looks like the hydrant's here,
I'm looking at
And this is
Right.
actually exiting.
exiting hydrant is right here. This is the exiting road,
Mhm,
correct?
mhm.
And he's exiting over this way.
But is this exiting into the drive or is this?
No, this goes out to the main road.
I think maybe he's talking about this exit and not exiting into the drive.
Oh.
That's what I thought. I'm not
Okay.
100% sure. I
Okay.
think Ed's
I'm
talking about
looking at the exit
exiting
from the
parking
property
lot.
over the side of your drive.
He's talking
Your hydrant. Sorry, that's put back.
He's talking about these parking spots here, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Oh, yeah, that way there, it'll be much easier for them to pull out, instead of having to come way out, maybe block traffic.
Yes, that is something we have to consider as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be easy for them to make that turn.
Yeah.
So we measured it. Right, so that driveway is well over 25. You know, that is sound regardless. So, the path of travel in and out is an issue. Now, I would argue the fact, I mean, they're obviously getting deliveries as well. Our deliveries are at least going to be unloaded and loaded in the yard. So we would have no impact at all. It'd never be unloaded or loaded in that drive.
Mhm.
Where when they get trucks in, they're gonna be unloading and loading within that drive. what that.
Yeah,
Our goal is to be a good neighbor,
right.
right? That's what we want, is a good neighbor and, you know, help the community when we come into the community. So, any other questions? Sorry, not used to these things.
So to begin, they're talking about 2 drivers at Sunbelt.
Mhm.
Would that increase, wouldn't they potentially increase up to 15 employees?
Currently, we only have one driver, but at Sunbelt, they work on different archetypes, we call them. So there's an archetype 1, archetype 2, and so on, right? The bigger the archetype, the bigger the branch. This is an archetype 2. So it's not like our smallest location, but it's nowhere near our largest location. So is it possible for them to have more than 2 drivers? It is, but typically a branch of this size may have 1 tractor trailer, 1 rollback, like she described as, you know, you would see a tow company use, and then maybe a F-250 with a trailer behind it for small deliveries. We would never have like 5 semis out of this location, just wouldn't support it. So the most we would see is maybe 3 delivery vehicles, 1 large one, 2 smaller ones. At full capacity. Yeah. It'd be great if we could get that, but then we're gonna outgrow the facility and we have to go somewhere else in. So, but you know, for that size property, that's what it would take. So. Any other questions?
Yeah, I love that you said that your goal is to be a good neighbor and also a good member of the community. I hope that you'll really integrate yourself into the fabric of the Cotati community. There are so many opportunities to do that, including, you know, community festivals and Kids Day and all types of things. So
Yeah, absolutely. Our branch manager is from this community, so he lives in this community. So, you know, most everybody that's gonna work there is gonna be from this community. So.
love that.
Any additional questions? Can I have a motion, please?
Thank you for your time.
Chair Gilardi, we do need to hold the public comment
Oh,
on
thank
this
you very
item.
much. Sorry about
And then
that.
if you have any further discussion, I would also just like to say that I think that regarding your question about flexibility on the parking, I think staff's feeling is that flexibility up to 5 spaces. So to reduce the parking count by up to 5 spaces, or the available parking spaces by up to 5 would be reasonable.
Does that
you
need
know,
to
if you
be
wanted to.
added into the resolution?
We would add it to the conditions of approval. Yeah, so we would do that tonight. Yeah.
Is there an additional public comment?
Can you pop that picture back up again, please?
I know what they're trying to do, and I probably, if I were in their shoes, I'd probably do the same thing, but I'm on the other shoe right now.
And the problem is, you see that bed line running down between that building? You put parking spots on this side and that side. You put a 48-foot trailer loaded with stuff coming down that alley. It's not going to do. It's never made to do that. That's, thank you.
Any additional public comment? Carl, is there any online comments?
Thank you, Chair Gilardi. Speaking to our Zoom attendees, if you'd like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand icon, or if you're dialing in, dial *9. Lori, you have the floor.
Okay, first my comment on this, I think that the project is fine. I think they'll work out the driveway as a civil matter. They might end up in court, but I understand all that. What I'm more concerned about is that you still have technical issues. You had up to 7 people waiting for the webcast that never came on. And so there's been no public, probably other than me, sitting here watching the Zoom. How many meetings are we going to have where we have no public input? We had problems at this last city council meeting. Repeatedly, you're limiting public input. Yes, you'll have a Zoom recording of this to put up in a couple days, but we need to have input on the time when you're hearing the item. I don't understand why we continually are being denied the ability to have public input over Zoom or even watch a webcast. Thank you. Bye.
Carla, is there any additional comments?
Chair Savage, or sorry, Chair Gilardi, looks like that'll end public comment.
Thank you. And just Noah had already explained that there's currently issues with this system and they're working on it, but it's being provided as a service to the community. So hopefully this will be resolved and those people who cannot attend a public meeting will be able to have access, but you're always welcome to attend to public meetings. With that, can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion that we pass a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Cotati approving a use permit for operation of a construction and heavy equipment sales and rental business with outdoor storage at 7611 Redwood Drive, with an additional consideration of flexibility on parking up to 5 spots to improve the turn traffic pattern.
Thank you. May I have a second, please?
I second.
Carla, roll call.
Commissioner Long.
Aye.
Commissioner Berman,
Yes.
Commissioner Savage,
Yes.
Vice Chair Moffett,
Aye.
Chair Gilardi.
Aye. Thank you. Next item is 7B, telecommunications ordinance update.
Thank you, Chair Gilardi. As identified, the next item is an update to the city's telecommunication ordinance, and I have a PowerPoint that is coming up. While we wait for that, I will just identify that the applicant for this ordinance is T-Mobile, and Hannah Boris, applicant representative, is here, and she will have a presentation following staff's. And as I mentioned, this is an update to the city's telecommunication ordinance being originally filed by T-Mobile. However, the city updating this telecom ordinance has been a priority for city staff since at least 2019. City council has expressed interest in getting this done, so we do appreciate T-Mobile filing the application and working with staff. You'll see there's 2 or actually 3 different colors of changes in the text. The blue and kind of purplish magenta colors in the red line version of the zoning ordinance is the language proposed by T-Mobile, and the red is the language proposed by staff. So we did work together on this, and staff is fully supportive of the changes requested by T-Mobile, and T-Mobile is aware of the changes being recommended by staff and has not identified any concerns over those. And so with that, we'll get into the presentation. So the project description is review and recommendation of an ordinance to the city council amending 3 separate chapters of the city's municipal code, all governing telecommunication facilities. And the goal of this would be to allow telecommunication facilities in more zoning districts throughout the city, specifically the open space recreation or parks district, commercial East Cotati corridor, commercial Gravenstein Highway, commercial downtown, Commerce Avenue, and Northern Gateway zoning districts. And all of this would require a use permit approval. So that's full approval by the Planning Commission at a public hearing for any of the requested new facilities that would require the use permit in these districts. And we'll go to the next slide. So this is a map of the city's zoning districts. And I'm going to try to not repeat a lot of the information that Hannah has in her presentation. But essentially, when reviewing what T-Mobile proposed, staff really looked at the purpose of the ordinance, and it talks about specifically establish development standards considered with federal law to regulate the placement and design of communication facilities to preserve the unique visual character of the city, ensure public safety and welfare, pursue additional benefits from the facilities of the public. Facilities to the public by encouraging leasing of publicly owned property and provide community benefit associated with provision of advanced communication services. So essentially, the city wants new facilities to look nice, locate them on city property where it's possible, and provide benefits of everyone having access to this.
Where does the aesthetics, the look nice part of this, does that reside in the zoning verbiage or more in the permitting process?
So it's both, but so the zoning, chapters 1744, the very beginning of that, which governs all telecommunication facilities, the very beginning of that talks about the purpose of all of those rules.
Okay.
And just so you know, that's what I was reading from, and it actually mentions aesthetics twice. Preserve the unique visual character of the city and promote the aesthetic appearance of the city. So there's two different references to that. So anytime we were looking at new facilities, we would have that in mind, but also some of the regulations that I'm going to speak to as we move into the presentation. So just really quickly, under today's zoning regime, new telecommunication facilities are allowed on any of those parcels that you see colored blue, which are only a few, and those are the public or the city-owned facilities essentially. And then Carla, if you advance the slide once, and also in the industrial areas of the city. So those are the only places you're allowed to build a cell tower currently in Cotati, which is partially why our coverage is what it is here in the city. If you advance the slides one more time, Carla. So this proposal adds them to the commercial Gravenstein corridor. So the commercial district out on Highway 116. One more time, Carla. The northern portion of the specific plan. So kind of those northern properties on Old Redwood Highway, north of downtown. Carla, one more time. The East Cotati corridor zoning district. So that's essentially those red properties. And Carla, if you just click through a couple times, it highlights those. There's a few little small parcels. And then one more. And then those 5 city parks essentially are proposed to expand beyond that initial area that was identified as the industrial district and the city-owned properties in blue.
The city requested to add that
Correct. Again, if the purpose, so, and it's also worth noting that the last time the city updated the zoning ordinance was in 2001. So Hannah's going to say 2004 because that's what the code says, but that's the last time we updated the entire code. I went back and found the actual language of writing the telecommunication ordinance, and it was 2001. So over 20 years ago. At that time, telecommunication infrastructure was relatively unsophisticated. And so the city, and not that widely adopted. So the city said, let's put them all in the industrial area or on our parcels where essentially the city could lease land to collect some revenue and be in control of kind of how those facilities looked.
So is the thought to put it on parks as well, to provide that city that opportunity to lease that space?
That's exactly right. And the other benefit is as more and more, community members move away from landlines, you need to have good cell coverage at your residential property. However, it's not appropriate to allow cellular facilities in residential, on residential parcels from the staff perspective. So you wouldn't want your neighbor to be able to put a cell tower on their apartment land or their single family land or those types of things. But if you need a mechanism to get good cell access close to those properties, but not on them, allowing them in the parkland is one mechanism to do that. So again, it would be not just a use permit approval, but the city owns that land. So the city would be making the decision whether they were interested in even allowing that on an individual basis or not. And then it would go through a public review process with the planning commission being the arbiter of whether or not that was an appropriate location and design. So there would be 2 layers of decision-making for whether it was appropriate. So given that and the purpose that we just talked about and the need to have cell service in residential properties, allowing it in parks, or at least the flexibility to have it in a park, seemed like a good way to kind of meet all of those elements.
I think it also gives us better control over the stealth design because we could camouflage and hide these versus you look at some areas around here where they just got those systems all over the place and they're not very attractive.
That's exactly right. So just getting into the summary, there's a lot of detail in the staff report and then also in the materials provided by T-Mobile. But as I mentioned, the existing code was written in 2001. It allowed these locations in relatively limited areas of the city. Since then, there's been significant amounts of changes to state and federal law. And majority of those changes have actually limited the amount that cities can regulate telecommunication facilities, because as they've essentially started to function more as a utility, basically everyone needs access to cell tower connections. The state and federal government has passed more and more laws limiting local jurisdictions over those facilities. So a lot of the proposed changes are trying to bring our process in keeping with those state and federal laws that we have to meet anyway. And then also ensuring that they are located in appropriate places based on the city's perspective. And then the designs are stealth. So all new facilities are required to be stealth design, but there's flexibility in what that means. And that's intentional. And we'll get into it a little bit. And just some of the things that we as staff have to deal with now are these timelines for review. And so in some instances, we have to turn approval around in 60 days, 90 days, or 150 days. And it would be the 150-day timeline for a use permit application. The 60-day is like if somebody was just to install new antennas on an existing facility, that's just allowed by right now. And we have to turn it around in a relatively low or short time period. We'll go to the next slide. So there's a lot of, again, as I mentioned, specifics in the zoning code, but as I talked about, the blue text is proposed by T-Mobile and also some of the magenta or purple. And then the red text is city language. Essentially, I think our amendments fit well with theirs, but they go a little bit further in some areas, requiring stealth designs for any new facilities. Trying to be a little bit more clear that administrative design review will be done even for those that are by right and allowed to just go to building permits. And then also, as we talked about, to build in some flexibility for allowing them in the Parks District when the city finds it appropriate. It also updates the procedural requirements just to meet those mandates from the state and federal law. And then providing some definitions that the code doesn't currently have, which the code doesn't even talk about stealth designs or breakpoint technology, which is essentially any new towers are engineered that if they're to fail because of an earthquake, they will fall in essentially a small area. So they don't, rather than timber over, they break and fall down kind of more vertically stacked. And I'm sure Hannah can speak more to that. We'll go to the next slide. As identified in the staff report and in one of the attachments from T-Mobile, there's a lot of general plan goals, policies, and objectives that this ordinance update is supported by. And staff is happy to have any discussion on that. And similar to the last item, staff found that these changes are consistent with the general plan EIR, which supports updating kind of the code to meet current expectations for facilities, telecommunication, and specifically because any future large-scale project is going to go through its own CEQA process. So the process to update the rules to be consistent with state and federal law and allow these conceptually to be located in more areas, staff found is consistent with the analysis in the general plan. So we'll go to the next slide. And because of those things, it is recommended by community development that the planning commission review the draft ordinance, adopt a resolution making a recommendation that the city council approve the ordinance, amending chapter 1722, which is the allowable land uses, 1744 telecommunication facilities, and 1790 definitions. And this would allow telecommunication facilities or cellular facilities in the open space recreation, East Cotati Court, commercial East Cotati Corridor, commercial Gravenstein Highway, the Commerce Avenue, Northern Gateway, and commercial downtown zoning districts, all subject to use permit approval. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Hannah also has a presentation, so I tried to be fairly general with the goal that we could get into specifics if the commission had questions on specific areas.
So the draft ordinance is on page 115 of all those items underneath the ordinance itself. So that's the draft that we're reviewing and then making a recommendation to the city council on.
Correct. And the majority of the changes are in chapter 1744, and it really gets into the nuts and bolts of how the rules apply to various things and what the processes are for each level of change.
Are there any questions, or would like to have the second presentation done first and then have questions after that? Would you like to do the presentation? Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Hannah Boris. I'm with Wireless Policy Group representing T-Mobile. And Madam Clerk, my colleague Ken Lyons is also on Zoom and would like to participate as an applicant's representative. So I'm not sure procedurally if there's, I just wanted to notify you that Ken Lyons was also on the bridge. Please. All right, so I have a brief presentation and then I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. So let's start with the purpose of the proposed amendments. The proposed amendments aim to improve wireless communication services for Cotati's residents, businesses, visitors, and first responders. Current regulations limit wireless facility locations to industrial or public facility districts only, which is approximately 3% of the city's total parcels. This restriction significantly restricts T-Mobile's ability to effectively provide service to the Cotati community. Amendments are suggested to enable deployment of facilities in additional appropriate districts within the city. Since the adoption of Chapter 17.44 telecommunications facilities in 2001, significant changes to federal law have occurred. Amendments have been proposed to ensure alignment with current federal regulations. Wireless network design and technology have undergone considerable evolution since 2004, prompting the need for amendments to bring existing development standards and definitions up to date with the reality of modern networks. Next slide, please. So here's just some wireless statistics that really highlight the importance of T-Mobile's network improvements for the Cotati community. Demand for wireless data is expected to grow 20% per year through 2028. 90% of Americans have a cell phone and 85% of those own a smartphone. Over 72% of California households rely on wireless as their only means of telecommunications, with over 81% of children living in wireless-only households and over 85% of renters in living in wireless-only households. 240 million calls are made to 911 in each year, and in many areas, 80% or more are from wireless devices. So what these statistics show us is that year over year, as more and more people are doing more things on their wireless devices, the demand for data on the wireless networks is continuously growing. Additionally, each year, the number of Americans who are cutting the cord and becoming wireless-only households is also growing. So for all intents and purposes, wireless providers like T-Mobile are essentially the modern day telephone company. Next slide, please. I won't spend too much time on this because I know Director Hausch already went through this. This is just a snapshot of the existing zoning map, where currently wireless communication facilities are allowed to be located in public facility and industrial districts only. Next slide, please. So this is just a GIS analysis of that zoning map. So you can see that under, GIS analysis determines only 3% of the city's total parcels are eligible for the location of wireless facilities, hindering T-Mobile's ability to effectively provide service to the majority of the city. So the parcels highlighted in green are the existing industrial and public facility zones. So everywhere in gray is currently prohibited from locating a wireless facility. Next slide, please. So this is a snapshot of the existing T-Mobile service coverage in the city of Cotati. As you'll see, T-Mobile only has one existing facility that's located in an industrial district in the northwest corner of the city. So this map shows us that anything highlighted in green and yellow has reliable in-building coverage. The areas in orange have reliable in-vehicle coverage, and all the rest has outdoor coverage, which is considered unreliable service. There's an immediate service need in the business district of East Cotati Avenue and the surrounding neighborhood. And T-Mobile will be looking to propose a new site in the East Cotati corridor to improve both voice and data services to the business district and surrounding community. Next slide, please. So the proposed amendments would add commercial and open space recreation districts as allowable siting districts as covered by Director Hausch. Next slide, please. And this is just an executive summary of the proposed amendments. As Director Hausch mentioned, the majority of those are in chapter 17.44. So under applicability, this exempts 6409 eligible facilities requests from the chapter's discretionary standards in accordance with federal law. Eligible facilities requests will be subject to administrative design review. Under permit requirements, the proposed amendments clarify the permit requirements for roof mounted facilities and minor modifications that do not qualify as an eligible facilities request. The limitations on location adds commercial and open space recreation districts as allowable siting districts. And the facility design and development standards revises setback standards to acknowledge new engineering technology, requires stealth designs for visible facilities, introduces a revised height limit for structure mounted facilities and a limited waiver process for exception to height standards, and proposes a new limited waiver process to avoid prohibitions of service. The proposed amendments to chapter 17.22 for allowable uses are simply proposed conforming amendments to the allowable land use tables, and new definitions for breakpoint technology and stealth design have been proposed in chapter 17.90. Next slide, please. So, we've talked about stealth designs this evening. We just wanted to provide a couple of examples. So here's a few examples of common rooftop stealth designs. I'll start moving from left to right. So the first in the top left-hand corner, this is an example of an FRP extension to an existing building signage. So all of the antennas and equipment would be fully screened within that equipment box. On the top right, this shows antennas which are screened in RF transparent film. The bottom left shows an FRP screen, which is built on the rooftop, designed to mimic either an elevator penthouse or existing rooftop equipment screen. And the bottom right shows antennas that can be screened as either faux rooftop vents or faux chimneys. Next slide. And here are a couple example stealth designs for freestanding facilities. So on the left, this would be something like a faux grain silo, a faux water tank, a faux clock tower, as well as faux monument signage. That concludes our presentation. We would like to thank Director Hausch and city staff for their collaboration and assistance with the application. We respectfully request your recommendation for approval, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Is it usual that we collaborate with a business to make a land use change in our, is this usual?
So I would say it is usual for staff to, for lack of a better term, take advantage of an opportunity. So it had been put on a priority list for the department for over 2 years to update the telecom ordinance, because as I mentioned, it hadn't been done since 2001. But we just had not been able to get the capacity to do it, given the council priorities on other things that had come up and some of the last minute issues such as the mobile home park ordinance. And so when this application came forward, essentially what we did, they have a objective in mind when they filed the application, and it's to build a new building mounted antenna for T-Mobile on East Cotati, on one of the buildings on East Cotati. And so they proposed their language that would accommodate their needs and also essentially help us meet the requirements of the federal law and state. And then staff took advantage of that by amending it further. They had some concerns initially when I showed them the language, because what I would say the applicant or the business, as you put it, was concerned about is if changes that staff are recommending cause the commission to be concerned, and then the ordinance doesn't get passed because they had their objectives. And then I essentially tried to further some of the city objectives as a part of that process. And I would just add, I frankly look for these opportunities anytime we have an ordinance. And it's because the amount of work and effort that goes into getting an ordinance done and updating the code, if there's a chance to fix some other small issues, I always look for opportunities to do that, just because it is a relatively heavy lift to rewrite the rules for the city.
And I would think it's also much less expensive than hiring outside consultants to do this work to fix some of these ordinances for us.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Can I have a motion, please? Oh, excuse me. Sorry, Carla. Any online audience members?
Yes, thank you, Chair Gilardi. Speaking to our Zoom attendees, if you'd like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand icon, or if you're dialing in, dial *9. Chair Gilardi, it looks like that'll end Zoom public comment.
Thank you. And there's no additional public comment out there. So if there's no additional questions.
Well, I just, what I understand is that we will be able to vote on a use permit when, for instance, a faux building is proposed. We will be able to vote on that, and we will have some say on said faux.
And so the rules, and this is frankly in response to the federal and state laws changing. If somebody wants to build a brand new tower, that will absolutely come before the planning commission. So in any look of faux anything. So the trees are what really people are assume to be the stealth tower design. Frankly, I'm not a fan of the faux trees. And so we have this conversation with T-Mobile there, and they were really concerned with all new facilities being required to be stealth, because they were imagining they would all be new trees. And they had similar concerns. And it's not the goal that every new facility be a tree, but it's that it be somehow, you don't see panels and antennas and wires projecting from some type of whatever it is, side of a building, brand new tower, those types of things. So anything that's brand new freestanding will absolutely come before the planning commission. In certain instances, under the state and federal law changes, T-Mobile or any applicant will be allowed to go straight to a building permit. So if there's already an existing one there and they're just adding capacity and it doesn't increase the height by a certain percentage, and I'd have to look it up to tell you what it is, then they're just allowed to do that.
Right.
And then there's these, and that's those qualifying facilities terminology. There's all this legal terminology that lives. And then there's these other options where it might not be a qualifying facility, but they're putting it on a building behind screening and nobody can see it. That also would qualify to just get a building permit. So in those instances, we would get new facilities that don't come before the planning commission, but nothing significant is going to be constructed that doesn't come before the planning commission under these rules.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional comments? Can I have a motion, please?
Oh, I wanted to say that in the ordinance itself, in the first paragraph, filed a rezoning application, first line, a rezoning. Second paragraph, infrastructure have become an ever, is it supposed to be ever increasing aspect of daily life?
This
So-
is the staff report.
No, this is the ordinance.
On page 115?
Yeah, page 115.
Thank you for catching those. I'll fix it before we bring it to council.
Yeah, because they'll catch it. You know them.
Motion, please.
I will make a motion to approve the resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Cotati recommending that the City Council adopt an ordinance amending chapters 17.22, 17.44, and 17.90 of Title 17 of the Cotati Municipal Code to allow telecommunication facilities in the zoning districts mentioned subject to use permit approval citywide.
May I have a second?
I second.
Carla, can we have a roll call?
Commissioner Long,
Aye.
Commissioner Berman,
Aye.
Commissioner Savage,
Aye.
Vice Chair Moffett,
Aye.
Chair Gilardi.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, staff, item 8, staff report.
Just briefly, I don't have much to report. Congratulations, Chair Gilardi, Vice Chair Moffett. Thank you, everyone, for your participation today, the first meeting of 2024. I did forward out the pending agenda, trying to plan out some meeting schedules. So you'll see we're very busy and we don't have any additional canceled meetings other than those that fall on holidays as of right now. But I did mistakenly identify the Monday after Easter as a city holiday, and that is not correct. So that would be a working day, which means it would be a working planning commission meeting date. So I'll update that, and I'm not sure how that could reshuffle some of the items that are identified on the advanced agenda. So just be aware of that. And I made a mistake. I just wanted to acknowledge that. Other than that, I will also add the city council has prioritized or put a discussion item on the agenda for addressing the technical issues that we've been challenged with recently. And so we do anticipate that being a priority and making some additional headway on solving those problems that we seem to keep running into.
Would it be possible to, since with the future meetings, if that's not fixed, if it could be like posted on the website so people know? And
Yeah, so we've already worked to create new agenda language to identify exactly what you're mentioning.
thank you.
And that'll be on the next agenda.
Okay, item 9, staff report, planning commission reports. Do we have any?
I attended the Housing Resource Fair at the Cotati Station back in December. And I thought they had a lot of information for housing as well as the AUD and the credit unions there and things on financing ARPA projects. And Jam Joy's Bungalow was there, which was nice to see. Free food for the first 100 attendees. So I thought that was very well done and very well put together. I was walking around the hotel construction site here just because I'm curious, is everything moving forward with that okay, financing and everything like that?
Yes, we have not heard any negative kind of project related issues. They were considering trying to pull a foundation only permit separate from all the vertical construction. They missed the rain window. And so given that, they are not pursuing that strategy anymore, and it'll come in as, it'll be issued as one full construction package, which we anticipate being able to get out prior to, I don't know if it'll be, we should have it out before the rainy season's over.
Okay. Because some of our sister cities have had some delays with going from construction loan to building loans, and their projects are on hold. So I was just concerned that things are still moving forward.
We're not seeing any of those issues with our applicant team.
And as I was walking around, we have all that beautiful hardscape down there and Gateway and everything like that. And then Pete's has all their landscaping has died. So it's just bare ground and irrigation lines. And, in several months, but we're going to have people coming into Cotati. And I don't think that's what we want the image and picture of our city to be. So what's the recourse to reaching out to our businesses to make sure they're being good community citizens about things like landscaping?
Yeah, we can send a letter to Pete's to start the conversation.
Yeah. And if there's others, there's others that aren't the greatest, but theirs is just so glaring. So I don't know if it's a broader issue in that corridor area as we start thinking, this is the front door of Cotati and we're going to have people visiting the city. We want to make sure we have our best foot forward for return business and make a good impression.
Good point.
I noticed it actually when I was at the pharmacy,
Yeah.
the irrigation line.
Yeah.
Any
Things
other
were better
comments?
when there were chickens.
I think that's why they let that stuff go.
Maybe.
Because, they were trying to eliminate nesting areas. But yeah, I agree. I like the chickens there.
I like the chickens.
Once in a while, there's just stay around.
Well.
Once in a while.
Mhm.
Is that Peruvian restaurants though?
We just, the planning department just signed off on the building permit for full construction. It's essentially rebuilding the entire building. It's in pretty bad shape. Won't look any different, but from the inside.
beginning, we'll still be up top.
Well, so we're still, the sign is a challenge. We're still working to make sure the property owner understands the importance of that sign. We do not have the ability to force them to keep it on the building. There is no historic district in Cotati. There is no protections over that sign. But so we're working with them to be good neighbors and good community members.
Well, hopefully it stays because about a month ago, we had a film crew here from Southern California that was doing a film on women in music. And they did a segment in Cotati featuring the end of the beginning. And they also came in the museum because we had some artifacts that they're interested in. And the people that are doing this film have won a number of major awards. And they're planning to have it out within the next 2 years. So that'll be kind of a nice thing. I don't know how long our segment's going to be, but it'll be nice that Cotati's part of that history. And for myself, I want to thank John for leading us for the last year. You did a wonderful job. I appreciate your leadership. And as a team, I think we're working very well together, and I'm looking forward to the upcoming year. I think Noah's going to keep us busy. Was there any items that were received after the agenda was posted?
Just the letter from the neighbor of Sunbelt, and that was amended to the agenda and provided to the commission and the public for review.
Thank you. And with that, I adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Congratulations, Ed. Do you have any assistance?
I will call.